those bodies and the screams, I mean, you can't think about, unhear that.
More than a dozen people killed, dozens more hurt in a potential terrorist attack in New Orleans.
Real life horror movie.
New details emerging on the suspect's plan and the investigation into whether he acted alone.
There will be no rest until these people are caught.
King 5's law enforcement analyst joins us in studio tonight. His response to the attack and what law enforcement in Seattle can learn when major events come to the Emerald City.
I just don't believe at all.
A Linwood teen shot and killed on New Year's Eve. Police are still searching for the person who pulled the trigger. And a Renton market up in flames.
Are you guys going to come now because it's expanding?
What caused the fire that left a business owner with nothing on New Year's Eve?
This is King 5 News at 5 with Joyce Taylor.
So we did indeed have a plan, but the terrorist defeated it.
That is the New Orleans police superintendent tonight responding to the deadly attack on Bourbon Street. At least 15 people were killed, another 30 injured after a man in a pickup truck drove onto the sidewalk around police barricades and into a crowd during a New Year's Eve celebration. This is new surveillance video of the moments leading up to that attack, and we have stopped it right here, you'll see, because as soon as that truck takes a right in front of the police cruiser that's parked right there on the corner and then onto Bourbon Street, the truck runs right into the first crowd of people. This is the path that the truck took before it crashed. The FBI has identified the suspect as a 42-year-old Texas man who's also an Army veteran. The FBI says the suspect had an ISIS flag on the back of the truck. He was later killed in a firefight with law enforcement. The agency believes that the suspect did not act alone. Weapons and what are believed to be explosives were found in the truck and around the French Quarter. Now, this attack happened less than a mile away from the Superdome, where the Sugar Bowl was set to take place this evening. That has since been postponed until tomorrow. New Orleans is also set to host the Super Bowl in February. Glad you're with us tonight. I'm Greg Copeland, in for Joyce. With all of the questions and a lot of fear, the police chief ending with a message of hope tonight.
This city has been tried by fire before. But fire purifies. Fire makes things stronger.
We are joined in studio tonight now by former King County Sheriff and King County law enforcement analyst John Urquhart. Obviously, great to have you in. Under better circumstances would be nice. When you look at something like this, what comes to mind?
Well, there, but for the grace of God, goes the Seattle area. This could have happened anywhere. Could have happened in Bellevue at Snowflake Lane. It could happen at the Space Needle. It could happen anytime, anywhere there are crowds around. That's the first thing that comes to mind as the former sheriff.
Do you think, obviously, the folks who are running law enforcement in this state right now are looking at this going, okay, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen here? Because it looked like they had taken a lot of precautions there, but from what we have learned, it sounds like some of the mechanical bollards that pop up on Bourbon Street, they had some sort of failure. They're still investigating that. So they had removed them, but they had brought in the cars, they had brought in other barricades. That guy didn't seem to care.
Drove right around the barricades. So clearly the barricades weren't enough to keep a vehicle out, if that's even possible. But at least it's something that needs to be done to try and dissuade someone who is of that mindset. And so that's one of the things that the investigation is clearly going to be looking at, is how he was able to get around that, why that wasn't blocked off better so he couldn't do that.
Bourbon Street is very unique. I wouldn't say we have anything quite like that in Seattle or even in Washington, but you've got a lot of big time events that happen here. You've got the World Cup coming to town. You've got to imagine that you're going to have a lot of law enforcement trying to plan. That has got to be part of that conversation, is how do you keep people from plowing through crowds wherever those streets might be?
That is going to be part of the conversation. By the same token, I'm sure it was part of the conversation in New Orleans at Bourbon Street. They tried to block it off. They just weren't able to do it enough to keep that particular car out of there.
But how does that happen? I mean, I know it's hard to look at that and say, but you know you have those in there for a reason if you're going to pull them out. It didn't look like they actually shut it down, and we'll learn more as that investigation proceeds. But if you're going to shut the street down, you've got to shut it down, right?
That's exactly right. Now, the good news is the police chief, the superintendent in New Orleans, is very, very experienced. Ann Kirkpatrick, she was in this area. She was the police chief of Ellensburg. She was the police chief of Federal Way, police chief of Spokane. She was my undersheriff for a period of time, the number 2 at the sheriff's office. She left to become an assistant chief in Chicago. Then she was the police chief of Oakland, and then on to New Orleans. And she has trained FBI agents, or trained for the FBI for years and years and years. Very experienced, very competent, very smart, and yet this was still able to happen at Bourbon Street.
It's very frustrating. I know everybody wants answers. Everybody wants to know how this could have happened.
And they want them now.
I guess if there's anything that can come out of this is that stations, law enforcement all over the country is now looking at this going, okay, we can't be the next one. And if you're somebody in Seattle, you have to think that if you want to be going down to some of these games, you want to have that trust in your department. You would think that the folks here are going to be very well prepared come time for that.
Well, you would certainly hope so. And every time there is an incident like this, we get better. Whether it was Columbine, and we do things differently after Columbine, the shooting in Denver in '99, we do things better. We do learn from mistakes, or at least things that happen. So that's the good news. But boy, this was a bad one, and there's still an awful lot we don't know,
right,
including who his accomplices were.
That's the thing, and they found all of the other explosive devices around town. Did he do it himself? They don't think so at this point, but obviously they're not sharing a lot of details. Always love to have you in. Wish it were under better circumstances. Until next time.
Okay.
We'll have a look over Bourbon Street right now, and investigators, they are still on the scene tonight. This is going to be quite the operation. Still a lot of questions, as John and I were talking about, that have to be answered. Was anybody else involved? Investigators think, there probably was. The mechanical barriers, or those bollards that we talked about, New Orleans officials say they were not working right. They had been removed. Would they have prevented this? We don't know at this point. We will have a live report from New Orleans coming up for you at 5:30. Breaking coverage continues all night on NBC as new details are released in this investigation. Lester Holt will have the latest coming up tonight on Nightly News right after this newscast. And from the tragedy in New Orleans to another one in Las Vegas, one person was killed, 7 others hurt after a Cybertruck exploded and then caught fire outside the Trump International Hotel. This happened about 9 o'clock this morning. This is some new video of the explosion we just got in a short time ago. Police say the bed was filled with either fireworks or some type of bomb, maybe both, that you saw there explode. The sheriff's office says the truck had been rented in Colorado, was driven to Vegas, and exploded less than 30 seconds after it parked there. They know who rented the truck. They're not sharing that name yet. Authorities are investigating this as a possible terrorist attack as well. We'll keep you posted as we get more details. A teenager is dead, another hurt after a shooting in Linwood last night. Police responded to the call near 196 Southwest and 68th Avenue. This was about 8:15. King 5 Sebastian Robertson is live in Linwood. And Sebastian, that search for that shooter is still ongoing.
It is, Greg. The shooting happened on New Year's Eve, but this morning in the daytime, investigators were still out there. And when we got to the scene, you could see flowers, candles, balloons showing up, and it became clear that one of the victims was just a teenager.
8:19 New Year's Eve. Gunshots in Linwood draw police from across the city to this apartment complex.
We are looking for 2 individuals that were involved in the altercation. The investigation's ongoing, and we're still looking for more information.
When police arrived, they found 2 young people with gunshot wounds. One was taken to the hospital, while the second teen died on scene. Friends tell us that was just a boy, 14 years old.
He was a good friend. I've known him since, I started talking to him around 6th grade, and he's really sweet.
Jasmine Magic went to school with the boy, who are not identifying as police work to contact next of kin.
Just being around him, just a really good person. He wasn't rude. I never fought with him once. He was a sweet person. I didn't believe it. I still it's hard to actually just believe. I just don't believe at all. But it hurts just knowing that he died.
Linwood police worked the scene overnight, and on New Year's Day, investigators could be seen conducting interviews.
Police looking for the public's help. If you have any information, you're asked to contact the Linwood Police Department. Greg?
Do we know at this point whether they even have any suspects?
Not a lot of information is being released, Greg. They say they could possibly have 2 suspects that they're interested in speaking with. And I will point out, New Year's Eve, traditionally a very busy day for law enforcement. Greg?
All right, Sebastian Robertson in Linwood tonight. Thank you for that. We are learning more about the deadly shooting in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Seattle police now tell King 5 the 29-year-old man who was killed was likely just caught in the crossfire. That shooting could be seen on traffic cameras around 3 o'clock this morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, I should say, yesterday along East Pike Street. Police are still looking for that shooter tonight. If you have any information, you should contact SPD's tip line. Tonight, detectives in Pierce County are working to piece together what killed 4 people. They were found dead in a home in South Hill last night. The latest on that investigation ahead at 5:30. A devastating way to start the new year for a longtime Renton business. Fire caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage to Viet Hoa Asian supermarket overnight. King 5's Brady Wakayama live outside the business tonight with more on the story. Brady.
Hey Greg, we're behind the supermarket where you can find this extensive damage of where the owners are calling a storage area. Now the fire marshals determined it was caused by fireworks, but it's still unknown who's responsible.
It was a crazy way to start the new year.
Cameras captured this raging fire shortly after midnight Wednesday behind the popular Viet Hoa Asian supermarket.
And I could feel the heat tremendously from my apartment on. I was ready to get out the door just in case if there was any explosion or anything, because I didn't know obviously what was behind that building.
That's Laverne Villa describing how she spent her New Year's.
Pretty traumatic, I can say, just because I've never experienced anything like this ever in my life.
She lives across the street from the market where she witnessed the devastation unfold.
And I just got on the phone and called 911. I was like, there is a fire at the store. You guys need to come now because it's expanding.
Fire officials estimate the damage total at $100,000. Firefighters were able to get it under control within about 20 minutes.
When I heard a loud bang and I assumed it was a firework.
There are some char marks on the back of the supermarket, and there was some smoke that reached inside the building. So the family of the business told King 5 they closed it on Wednesday to clean up and make sure their products are safe to sell, as the community looks forward to supporting this beloved supermarket after a rough start to 2025.
Hoping that the damages are, fixable and everything so they can get obviously back up and running and stuff.
And the owners of the business say that they're grateful that nobody was hurt during this incident and that the damage inside the store is minimal. And as far as the store and when it'll reopen, they expect that it'll reopen tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. For now, live in Renton, Brady Wakayama, King 5 News.
Still ahead on King 5 News tonight, traffic in Seattle is about to pick up as Amazon workers begin heading back into the office full time. How much time that could add to your commute amid all the other construction projects that are underway. The holidays aren't over in Tacoma. We're going to show you the city's light trail that's bringing some color to the streets.
It's an especially devastating and significant loss that it is her calf died.
First, though, both suffering and some surprise for our southern resident orcas. One calf has passed away, but researchers say there are signs of new life. And we're still tracking breaking news out of New Orleans after 15 people were killed, another 30 hurt in what the FBI is calling a terrorist attack on Bourbon Street. Tonight, Delta Airlines is among those warning that travel to and from New Orleans could be disrupted because of what it calls the security situation there. Delta, Southwest, and American Airlines are all offering options for passengers to rebook. We have a live report from New Orleans with the latest on the investigation coming up for you at 5:30.